Fame and fortune. These things are not so easy to achieve. The lucky few who do get to the top are idolized and adored. But what about when children get into the mix? What lengths would their managers, producers, and even their families go to for the money their child earned? Should they have a right to their kid's success? Young stars in the early 20th century suffered from financial abuse during the rise of television and entertainment. Former child star Jackie Coogan sued his mother for reparations, leading to the Coogan Act in 1939. Despite legislative loopholes allowing cases to slip through the cracks, new laws and additions began to be added which further secured these kids' rights and still hold to the parents of the responsibility of protecting their children to this day. In the early 20th century, Hollywood and film began to blossom as entertainment evolved past live performances. The first movie was created in 1872 with motion toys, and film expanded as they experimented with new technologies such as video editing. These developments led to exceptional movies and produced influential stars such as Charlie Chaplin. In this era, movies such as The Gold Rush would quickly shoot stars to the top, sparking a new era of celebrities. As for finances, they would make anywhere from $50 to $2,500 a week. General state labor laws applied to actors, and they could join actors' unions, such as the Screen Actors Guild, for legal protection of their rights on set. Children also made their way into this newly found route to stardom. They would quickly become loved by the nation for their exemplary appearances on the silver screen. On average, child actors in this era would make about $40 to $125 a week. However, an unfortunate lack of protections allowed for the exploitation of these young actors. Child labor laws were known to be a global struggle. As for America, regulations for child workers began post-industrialization with new organizations, such as the National Child Labor Committee, who attempted to abolish child labor altogether. Laws were contested in court through the years, but the protections for these children and their right to a safe and healthy working environment were left unstable. In the early 1900s, child actors became a staple in American film. Acclaimed stars such as Baby Peggy solidified the growth of childhood acting. In addition to the struggle of implementing federal child labor laws, child actors had no specific protections of their rights. An amendment to California Civil Code made in 1927 only made it more difficult for children in entertainment to have control over their career. Before the addition, child actors could disaffirm their own contracts, and studios were discouraged from hiring child actors knowing that they could easily switch to a different studio. This law took away a child actor's right to disaffirm a contract, meaning if a judge approved a minor's contract to a studio, they were now bound to it with no way out. These laws, or lack thereof, would lead to exploitation of talents, influence, and finances of child actors due to the lack of responsibility taken by parents, directors, managers, and producers to produce a safe, working environment for them. John Leslie Coogan, famously known as Jackie Coogan, was a child actor during this era. He began his career at 18 months old, but really took off in 1921 when he starred in the classic silent film The Kid with Charlie Chaplin. Unfortunately, he would not receive all of his earnings due to a lack of legal protection of his rights and his mother's ignorance towards the responsibility of managing his finances. As Coogan became older, he became one of the most renowned child actors of his time and made around $4 million, which translates to over $75 million today. At only 20 years old, Coogan's life took a dramatic turn when he, his father, and 3 other passengers were forced off the road while driving back from a hunting trip in Mexico on May 5, 1935. Coogan was left severely injured, and the other passengers died, including his father. This became a hard time for the young star. Following the passing of his father, John Coogan, his mother, Lillian Coogan, married his business manager and their family lawyer, Arthur Bernstein, after a scandalous public relationship. Only a short time after, Jackie Coogan turned 21, when he should be able to access his earnings. But his mother and stepfather stated they had no intention to give him any of his profits. Coogan's mother said to the public, "No promises were ever made to give Jackie anything. Every dollar a kid makes before he's 21 belongs to his parents," which was validated by the law regarding this issue at the time. She also argued that Coogan was not responsible enough to handle his own finances, mainly due to his struggle with alcohol addiction. After 2 years without his earnings, Coogan no longer had an income of his own, living off of his newly wedded wife, Betty Grabble's earnings. He became appalled by his mother's irresponsible behavior and hurtful words, and finally decided to take action, stating, "Now I owe a duty to my wife and myself not to wait any longer." In 1938, he took his mother and stepfather to the Los Angeles Superior Court to seize his earnings, beginning a lawsuit that the public called the Battle of the Millions. The case was full of allegations, emotions, and tension. While Coogan was mostly backed by the public, his mother made claims in the case which went against what the people knew about him. She would refer to Coogan as a 20-year-old bad boy in court, as well as saying, "I've always tried to do the best for him. I've tried to make a man of him, but I don't think I've been successful." Along with that, Bernstein blackmailed Coogan with his connections in Hollywood and made accusations that he was lying about his earnings. He stated that Coogan made less than the $4 million he called for, but this allegation was debunked with checks and receipts from Coogan's youth. Jackie Coogan was persistent in court and in the public eye, not giving up his rightfully earned money and revealing his mother and stepfather's irresponsibility and cruelty as they held his finances against him. The lawsuit ended in 1939, with a settlement in which Coogan only received approximately $126,000, a mere fraction from the $4 million. Many different news articles and rumors caught the case of the attention from lawmakers and judges, one being Raymond Joseph Cannon. He declared that the financial plight of Coogan has shocked the conscience of the nation. On Friday, April 22nd, 1938, during the suit, Superior Judge Emmett Wilson issued a court order that no screen contracts with a minor can be approved unless the parents or guardians agree to establish a trust in the child's name. This led to the creation of the California Child Actors Bill, also known as the Coogan Act after the lawsuit, which went into effect on September 19, 1939. This law, in Coogan's words, gives most of the child's salary to a court trust fund so parents and guardians can't get it. After the lawsuit, Coogan continued his acting career, which included one of his most famous roles as Uncle Fester in the 1964 sitcom The Addams Family. He passed away on March 1, 1984, with around $15 million to his name. Now with the Coogan law in place, it was legally required that every child actor had a trust monitored by the court called a Coogan account. This account would hold a minimum of 15% of a child actor's gross earnings. Then once they turned 18, they could access the money. While the first attempt was strong, it was still excluding other child celebrities like musicians, singers, and stunt persons, and it was only in effect in California, overall lacking other protections. In 1938, President Franklin D. Roosevelt put the Fair Labor Standards Act into effect. This law enacted protections for numerous amounts of employees across many industries, including working minors. However, these laws would only apply to children working in hazardous industries, and entertainment didn't qualify as such. This meant that child actors were completely exempt from these laws and could only rely on state regulations, actors' unions, and the Coogan law for those in California. As time passed, a noticeable trend occurred of studios using child actors less. This was rumored to be due to the law, and on top of this new additional cost, producers may have to make more payments once they become adults if they are paid any royalties. It was speculated in Hollywood that because of this, studios avoided using child actors in film. However, some did find loopholes and gaps in the Coogan Act to keep their young stars and avoid these costs. In many cases, parents would simply not create a Coogan account for their child at all, or embezzle the earnings without being caught or tried for it. Child stars began to take matters into their own hands when it came to their rights and taking the responsibility for their finances. 50 years after Coogan, a young pop idol, Tiffany Darwish, took her mother to court to emancipate from her in 1988. Many more kids took this route and fought for their rights going into the 90s and 2000s. Revisions finally began to be made in 1999, and the act went through numerous changes. More states in the U.S. adopted regulations in order to protect child stars. As of today, 34 states and Puerto Rico have regulations in place specifically for kids in entertainment. Each have their own variations to these laws. New York's law is similar to California's, as children need a trust set up in their name where their earnings will go. However, they also need what's called a custodian, which is someone who watches over the finances, whether as a legal guardian or professional financial advisor. As for children in states where there's no specific protections for child actors, including Nevada, Kentucky, and Oklahoma, general child labor laws implemented by the state are the only protections for child actors. The most recent expansion of the Act, California Assembly Bill 1880, was made in September 2024. This new addition now includes child influencers, also known as kidfluencers, on social media. They are legally required to have a Coogan account and now have some financial security. This was signed into law by California Governor Gavin Newsom and child former star and pop singer Demi Lovato. The law went into effect on January 1st in 2025. Along with many kidfluencer controversies, lawsuits from kids and their families emerged in order to reclaim their earnings from corrupt management. As these rumors, suits, and controversies go viral across the internet, states such as Ohio and Utah are taking action, creating laws alike to the Coogan Act to protect their children online. Utah lawmaker Doug Owens stated, "If you are making money as a child actor, performer, or influencer, your parents, or whoever is making the money from it, needs to set some percentage in a trust." The actions Coogan took to reclaim his finances sparked new legislative steps in protecting child celebrities, leaving behind a legacy of protection and financial security. The act is constantly being improved and altered to adjust with the time, and still has a long way to go to fully ensure fair treatment and pay, on and off set.